Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. Today, very grateful to be joined by Luke Balcke for probably, I think, the third time. Luke's awesome. His story will be in the show notes for those that are new to my show and new to Luke. Luke, welcome back to the show for the third time, mate. Can you believe it's been 12 months since our last conversation? Where has that
Mate,
time gone, bro?
firstly, thanks for having me back. It's good to see you again, mate. That's a whirlwind. And like we just said off air, there's so many changes, so much happening professionally, personally. I've been so busy, but yeah, I feel like I'm in the same place. So yeah, it's been an interesting 12 months. And then, navigating and observing what's going on in the world and the pace in which things are changing rapidly, and things are happening. It's like one thing to the next to the next. And there's so many facets to the world that's changing rapidly. So it's an interesting period of time, that's for sure.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're in 2025, heading into 2026. What does Obviously, for those that are new to Luke, Luke is an astrologer, and he's a very, very good one. I saw his content where Luke, you predicted the AFL and NRL grand final.
Yeah, that was a bit of fun. That's something I don't usually do, but I had so many people asking me, who do you think's going to win? Who do you think's going to win? And I just thought, oh, well, I'll look at the chart and see if I can understand. It doesn't tell you, the chart doesn't tell you the winner. It just tells you, the quality of the event. And
Okay.
based on the quality of the event, because the event has a start time, date, and location, we can cast a chart for that moment, and then we can look at it. And when you're looking at a competition, you're looking at two opposing sides. They're reflected through different parts of that chart. So then it's easy to sort of look at the condition of those two parts to sort of say, is it leaning more to supporting one side over the other? And in the case of both those games, the Brisbane teams, although they weren't the favourite, Geelong was favourite. The Melbourne Storm were favourite going into those games. It just looked like it was the astrology was going to favour the opposing team, and that's how it sort of played out. So, yeah, it was an interesting thing, but not something I normally do.
No.
Bit of fun, bit
I
of fun.
watched the I watched the AFL one, and just while we're talking about it now, and then we'll move on to the rest of the chat. But does each team have its own chart? Because in the video you said something about Brisbane and the chart. I'm thinking I was going to ask you. I was like, I'll get you back on and ask you this anyway. But yeah, does each team have its own particular chart? Like, how does
Yeah.
that work?
Well, it does, but when you're looking at like the grand final, for example, you're not looking at the individual charts of each team. So if you wanted to, you could go back and find when did the team begin.
Okay,
Might be hard to get a birth time for that because you could probably
that's
say
true.
they were established on a particular date,
Yep,
when were they established? But trying to find the time of that would be very difficult. In that case, you would cast the chart for 12 p.m. because it's right smack bang in the middle of the day.
yep.
And there would be some information you could gain from that looking at the life of that particular entity, which is the team, right? So,
Interesting.
but when you're looking at an event, we're looking at the grand final, we could cast a chart. We know exactly the day and time and location that
That's
that's going
true.
to take place. So what we do is we cast a chart for that moment, and then there are particular parts of that chart that relate to the favorite versus the underdog. So when we can establish that, we can what's the favorite team? Okay, they're this part of the chart. What's the underdog? They're this part. And then what we do is we look to the planetary alignments, and in particular the moon, and the top of the chart, which is known as the MC, which is like the prize. So if you have the moon and the MC of a chart supporting one side over the other, at a very basic level, you could say that the game's probably going to go, or the event's probably going to go in their favor. And there are other things that sort of break down then the nuances of it. I think the video you're talking about, that was the Brisbane Broncos
Yeah,
Melbourne Storm game,
yeah.
which I didn't do a video for the AFL one. I just put stuff on Instagram.
Mm.
But on the popularity of that, everyone said, well, what about the Broncos? What about the NRL? So I thought I'll put together a little 25-minute video on it. And it was interesting because I just sort of broke down how I saw the event unfolding, and the game literally followed that script.
That's
Like,
unreal.
so I don't gamble on anything other than outside of poker, because
Yep.
I love Texas Hold'em poker and I love playing the opponent and the cards and a bit of luck mixed with a bit of strategy. It's good fun. Outside of that, I don't really gamble on anything, but I had a lot of people, followers, and clients going, "Oh my God, I want so much money because of that." I'm like, okay, that's your prerogative, but Yeah, it was a bit of fun.
Mm.
What I've been asked the latest is, can you do the Melbourne Cup?
Oh,
So it's interesting. I'm going to have a look at it. We
okay.
need to be closer to the date because we need to know the field, and I need to know what horses are. Is there one or two favorites?
Yep.
And then it's a bit different when you've got a multi sort of participant event. So like lots of horses, or for example, Bathurst. I had someone say, "What about Bathurst?" I had a very brief look, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be, a lot of controversy around the ending of the game of the race, probably marred with weather, and the favorite is or the pole sitter is not going to win. They're going to have mechanical issues." And that's pretty much how it's played out. And you can see that when you interpret the symbolism of the chart, you can see that sort of playing out. So when it comes to something like the Melbourne Cup, we've got to look at the field. Where are they represented by the chart of the time of that race? And then does the chart sort of favor the field or the favorite? And then if it favors the field, then we want to look to the symbolism of the planetary energies that's being supported and say, okay, what horses, jockeys, or numbers and colors resonate at that symbol? And then we can narrow it down. Can we say that horse is going to win? Probably not, but we could say it might be a white horse, or it
Mm.
could be these colors or this number, and it could be coming from the field rather than the favorite, or vice versa. So those are the types of things you could see by looking at the chart. Um, Astrology is one of those things. Everything's connected. Astrology is the blueprint that sort of
Yep.
underlies the energetic sort of relationship of energy. So there's lots of different areas and fields of astrology. My expertise is in evolutionary astrology, so looking at the soul's journey,
Mm.
and helping people awaken to the soul's journey and why the soul came here. But there is financial astrology, there's medical astrology, there's mundane astrology, which I dabble in a bit, which is looking at worldly affairs.
Yep.
And then there's all types of different forms of astrology. So if we all fundamentally in our education were taught the basics of understanding
Yep.
the language of the cosmos, astrology, elements, the signs, symbols of planets, and how they work, we would all be able to, understand how things flow. So just as a side note, this is what I think. This is my conspiratorial mind that goes on. Those that are initiated into secret societies have infiltrated into most corporations and political systems and media and all those types of things, and even sporting events and stuff. So it's my theory that you only need a couple of key people within certain positions that make decisions within, let's say umpiring and referee. You
Mm.
only need a certain amount of people that knew the, the cosmos and the energy and how things play out, that could then feed into that script. So these are like when you see a game playing out and there's decisions and they tend to favor one side, and you're like, what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah.
And it's like, is there a few key people in certain positions that just, or are those key people, compromised and they're being influenced by people in the know to sort of how things unfold? So there's a very good reason then why they don't want the masses understanding this language, because we know their game then, so and we'd be able to predict it a lot easier and look at it and go, "Hey, that's what's going on." So that's my theory anyway. It's a bit conspiratorial, but
No, but I like it because I've often thought about it since I've sort of awoken in my journey, and I was going to ask you a bit about this before we move on. Do you believe that the elites know, or some of the elites know this stuff, and they can, yeah, and then they put money in, and then it's all that's how they get the. It's like they could do the. I think you did say Geelong halftime, then Brisbane. That didn't play out in the AFL. It was Brisbane, but it's like they
oh,
know
it was,
this
it was a draw at
information.
halftime.
Yeah, it
In
was. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
they could probably know that and they'd bet on the draw, and then that's just how this works, right?
yeah. I
I'm with
think
you.
I think at a low level, them gambling on those types of things, absolutely. But at a
Yeah.
high level, there's JP Morgan is famous for saying that millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do.
Gotcha.
So I only know that they know based on what they do and when they do it, and,
Yep.
and what they do based on what time it is. And are people, like said this recently in one of my YouTube videos, it's like the people that we have as the political puppets that are sort of the government's talking heads, they're not in the know, they're not initiated. They're just their strings are being pulled, right?
Hmm.
Right? But the people that are pulling the strings, they're in the know because of why they do certain things and when they do them.
Mm.
And an example of this is Elon Musk. Okay, so Elon Musk, he's a Cancer sun sign.
Oh,
However, it's said that his rising sign is Aries, and the
that's
rising
me as
sign,
well.
right, right. The rising sign is interesting because the sun is part of a vehicle of identity. So when you say I'm Luke and this is who I am, my identity is tied into our sun sign. But
Mm.
our intrinsic sort of nature, what you see and what you get, and our spiritual sort of energetic predisposition we come here to experience, but also we leave here with, is usually depicted by the rising sign. Now, his rising sign, it's thought to be, because we're not 100% certain of his birth time, but Aries rising, Cancer sun, Aries rising. Now, Aries is ruled by Mars, the planet Mars, right? And where does he want to take civilization? Now,
Yeah.
he wants to take it to Mars. Now, if we could show up some graphics, I'll show you the Tesla logo. And the Tesla logo, there's three things about it. One, it's red. Red is the color of Mars, right? Two, the actual symbol itself is the symbol for Aries. It's just a version of it, right? If you
Interesting.
look at the T, and then you look at the Aries symbol, pretty much the same. And then Tesla, the logo, Telsa, I think that's what it, Telsa, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
In the middle, where the Aries symbol points directly down to is the S, but it's written as a five. Now, why number five? Because in the Kabbalistic tree of life, which these initiates all have sort of learnt, the application of this knowledge used via the tree of life. The fifth Sephiroth or sphere within that symbol is number five is related to Mars, right? So he encodes within the symbolism of Tesla the idea of Aries, which is pioneering, the first to do something, the first to mass produce certain cars. And where does he want to take rocket ships? He's
Mm.
obsessed with Mars,
Mm.
right? When did he take over Twitter and turned it into X? He did that during a Mars retrograde in the sign of Gemini. And
Interesting.
Gemini is the sign of technology and communication. A tweet, which is just a little bit of a, I'm going to say something like a little, that's a Gemini thing. Gemini is all about communication, the toing and froing of information from one person to the next. It's the medium of exchange of information and ideas and thoughts and communication. That's Gemini. Mars, the planet that deals with acquisitions to take something by force, was retrograding through that sign and he took Twitter, right? He took over Twitter by force. So I see that happening, knowing that this guy is obsessed with Mars. He's embedded the symbolism of astrology in his logos. Then he does that. I'm like, this guy's initiated, right?
Mm.
He's initiated into this occult knowledge. Now, occult isn't bad, right? Oh, occult. Occult is hidden. That's all
Mm.
occult means, is something that's occulted is hidden.
Mm.
And it's hidden from the profane. You know the saying, don't cast pearls before swine? Well, those initiated believe that everyone that's uninitiated is swine. So we aren't going to tell you shit. But if you knock on that door, or if you ask the question, it can be opened. But you've got to seek it out. It's not there. It's esoteric,
Mm.
not exoteric. So 100% people like him and people that have infiltrated high levels of government, corporation, and media abso-fucking-lutely are initiated, And then you see something like the Charlie Kirk thing, right, that went on,
Mm.
and the how it foreshadowed or was foreshadowed in the movie Snake Eyes.
Mm.
There was a movie that came out in the 90s with what's that guy's name? I can't think of it off the top of my head now.
It's all right.
It'll come to me shortly.
It will.
Anyway, it foreshadowed in a way the Charlie Kirk's assassination. So it's like, well, hang on, what's going on here? What do they do? Well, the people that are behind these types of things, secret societies, right, take secret oaths, and there's all certain sects and orders within different secret societies. This is how they communicate to each other. They do it symbolically.
Nicholas Cage. I just Googled
Nicholas
it for you.
Cage, thank you very much. That's him. That's him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's in a lot of those adventure type movies and he always
Mm.
plays a stereotypical type person. He's probably a Freemason of some nature or some in some secret or order or something like that. That usually those people that go to high places of prominence have been initiated, or if they haven't, they're controlled by people that have been,
Mm.
So it's like you're going to get to a certain level. Beyond that, when you get into mega fame, mega wealth, mega, it's usually reserved for those that are initiated. And for the rest of us, we're not. And you can self-initiate, absolutely. People can do that. But then within those different organized institutions and secret societies, there's how they talk and communicate to one another. They do it symbolically. So they all know what's going on. And it's a calling card, right? If someone does something a certain way, other sects and secret societies go, oh, that they know who that was. Now, you think, oh, well, why don't they come out and tell us? Why don't they, how do they know, how do you know all this? Because that's the number one oath you take when you enter into any secret society is that if you divulge the secrets, you are going to die. Like you have to, even at a very low level of Freemasonry, you take these certain pledges. One of them is that if you divulge the secrets of Freemasonry outside of the order to the uninitiated, you pledge your life.
Mm.
So it's yeah, the world is run by these types of people. At the low level it isn't. They're just pawns and puppets and being pulled on strings and whatever. But at a high level or the shadow level of this, absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And how do I know that? Because of my understanding and knowledge of symbolism and the occult, and then I can see it being played out. You can see it. And that's what astrology allows you to do is decode reality and have a look at the energetics behind it. And it when you start to learn the symbolism of astrology, you see the world through that lens. And you see certain things happening in the way they happen and that symbolism behind it. And you're like, that's exactly why things are occurring the way they are. And it's called the sky script. It's a big story that's going on here. So all they've got to do if they want something to really, manifest or come to fruition or, be a force in this reality is they just match the story, right?
Yep.
They just match it in symbolically, they just match that story and it plays out down here. And why do people, collective as well, collective people, humanity, why do they respond certain ways at certain times, certain things, and how do we get that collective? Well, you understand astrology helps you to understand the evolution of consciousness and the unfoldment of energy, and everything's connected. So people are going to play out that energy as depicted by the stars, So this is the major secret that it's one of the many major secrets that they don't want the profane, the uninitiated knowing. That's why they ostracize things that are spiritual or woo or even astrology and things through media and movies and stuff like that. They'll outcast it. They'll make it a bit woo. They put the horoscope in the magazine so you don't look at it because it's a bit, you know, non-fanciful and generic and not specific enough. And it's like it's easy to dismiss. Oh, it's pseudoscience. Yeah.
Mm.
They've diverged that way so that they keep that knowledge for themselves. They don't want you looking at it and they don't want you opening that door. But we're in the age of awakenings. So I opened that door in 2015.
Yep.
And I'm still looking at their secrets and what's going on. So
Mm.
I moved away from putting so much energy into it because I'm like, okay, my purpose is to help the individual basically awaken, connect to their soul, and then make changes in their life because the version of them that built the life they're currently living, when they go through the awakening, there's a new version of them trying to emerge. And sometimes that version isn't aligned to the life that they built for themselves. And I
Yep.
went through that personally myself. And it's
Same.
hard. It's a hard process to sort of unpack that and make the changes. It's not an easy thing. And when I went through it myself, I made a lot of fuck ups and failures and got things wrong and made mistakes and hurt myself and others along the way. And on the other side of it, I was like, fuck, and that's hectic
Mm.
because of my because of my understanding and my knowledge with astrology, that's the tool that I use to help support people now to sort of say, hey, you're not crazy. And it's hard, but you can do it. And on the other side of all the things you fear is the life you desire. So, I support people through those all types of, real life massive changes, but I just use astrology as the tool. I don't like to refer to myself as an astrologer per se. I'm deeply understanding of it and I use it as a tool. I'm really like a guide. That's
Mm.
what I am, is I'm a guide to help guide you, and I'm looking at you through in your life and your situation through the lens of astrology. It helps me objectify the situation. And through that objectivity, I can give clarity and guidance that's practical that you can apply to your life and make the changes you need to make, so
I love it.
that was a bit of a rant. Sorry about
No,
that.
I love
We
it.
got we got there through fucking sports.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. It's funny how this conversation works and how we just go off the cuff and it just flows anyway, because we're going to circle back to the clarity and all of that stuff because, you know, we're getting very close to the end of 2025. And how have you seen this year play out on like in a world level? And then what's coming for the look? I'm just going to ask you a question at the moment because gold and silver is really fucking high. Hey, gold and silver is skyrocketing. So what is coming for the back bit of this year into next year in the financial space, in the world space? Are we going to get some upheaval and some big changes? What do you think?
So first of all, 2025 is like the preview for
That's
2026.
what you said last year.
It is. It's 2025 is all about next year. And the reason for that is because the major astrological cycles and alignments, they come into their effect this year, but they don't come into their exact sort of connection until next year.
Yep.
So it's automatic, like, hey, peekaboo, jokes, and then like the guy pulls behind the corner and then goes back into
Yep.
it. Like, what the fuck? What's happening? So it's sort of like you can sense that, you can feel that, right?
Mm,
Now, on the financial side of things, I will start by saying I'm not a financial astrologer, and there are very good people that have dedicated their lives to
mm,
financial astrology. One in particular is no longer here with us. His name was Gann, Gann. So if you want to look up any astrologer that follows the Gann methodology, there's a guy, I think he's on the Sunshine Coast, Inigo. Inigo, he's a long-term weather forecaster, and he's also a financial astrologer. And he's the guy to look at when it comes to the cycles associated to the stars in relation to wealth and finance and things. I don't, it's not an interest for me. What I will
yep.
say about what I will say about, gold and silver and things like that, the financial system is a fiat system. It's phony, it's fake,
Mm,
out of thin air. All it is holding up the financial system is the trust in the value of it, and it has no value, right? It's just a piece of paper. And not only that, when you go and loan that piece of paper that you have to pay back with interest, it's created out of thin air. There is nothing there. There's just creation of nothingness into the system, which then they apply the value, and then you have to take that and give back not only the amount you borrowed, but extra. Right? It's the biggest scam. And
mm,
that's why Jesus was against this, right? And he spoke
mm,
out against him and they crucified him. But the financial system, taxation system, the economic system, it's a scam. So
mhm.
when that comes more into the awareness of the populace, you're going to have things like real estate, fixed assets, gold and silver. The value is going to, it's you could say, is their value going up, or is the value of this fiat currency going down? And it's probably
Oh,
a bit of both, right?
yeah.
Because of inflation, and that's the hidden taxation on the
Yep.
masses, and it keeps them just at that edge of, not we're not in poverty, but we're at that edge, right? So this needs to be coming into the collective in a mass way to create a tipping point. So there is a mass awakening around this. We just go, we're not playing your fucking game anymore.
Mm,
And it's a game, right? They don't want to. That's why they distract us with meaningless things, and sport is one of them things,
yep.
right? They want to distract us with things like entertainment and reality, TV, and all those sort of things. Because if we really woke up to what's fucking going on, that we're in a fucking, we're being caged.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens? And they don't want that. And yeah, so the idea that the financial system and the economics and the debt that they own, all that's like it's one big Ponzi fucking scheme. And is this crypto is the answer to this? Is that, I don't know. And you have the pro crypto people and the ones against it, the cons, and I don't know. I just look at symbolism and I think a crypt is something that you put someone dead inside.
That's true.
So is it a dead currency? Is it, like, I don't know. And
Mm,
if I spend too much time giving my too much energy to those types of things, it pulls me off my purpose,
yep.
because it really frustrates me, and it fucking, like, I don't know what to do about that. I'm like, I'm so. ignorant to it, but I also have no interest in it. But at the same time, a lot of that governs fucking how we live on this earth, right? So it's something that I'm aware of, but I don't tend to focus much on it because I'm of the belief of that we need to get to a place individually where we're not attached, right? So that we're so non-attached, so we could be butt naked in a desert in the middle of nowhere and completely alone and be completely free and happy. Like that
Mm.
level of non-attachment, could you get to that place where none of this shit really matters? You're not taking any of it with you. We give so much importance to it while we're here in this little time period, and we're being conditioned to value it in such high ways that we will spend 60 years of our 70 years of our lives trying to get our little bit of it, only to do what? Look back and go, what the fuck was I doing wasting my time? So I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful little rant too. But,
But
the
coming
sec
back to the astrology of where we're at, right?
yeah, let's go back there. So where we're at
Absolutely.
right now. So so this will go up next week, but we're on October 17th right now. So we haven't got long before the end of this year. So as you said, this was a preview to next year. So what does next year and these next couple of months have in store? What are the
Yeah, so
charts saying?
it's difficult to understand the gravity of what is occurring astrologically because when I go back through the astrological software to be able to check and look at certain alignments and cycles and themes and when have they occurred again, like previously, well, the planetary cycles, Pluto was 250 years ago in Aquarius, it's now in Aquarius. So no one alive has experienced that. So what is that going to mean?
Ah,
And it's happening at a time period when we have the advancement of technology and AI. So the
interesting.
last time Pluto was in Aquarius, you were Westerns,
Mhm.
cowboys and Indian time, right? The wild, wild West and the frontier and all of that, the American independence and freedom and the Civil War and all those times. So you can't really, you can look at that and say, okay, collectively, that's a ton of like revolution and uprising and freedom and the desire for the individual and the sovereign, right? The French Revolution, the American independence, they were all tied into the Pluto and Aquarius. The interesting thing was it actually wasn't consciously even known because Pluto wasn't discovered until like the early 1900s. So yes, Pluto's always been there, hasn't not been there, but was it in the collective consciousness as a planetary energy? Not necessarily. Mythologically, it had been spoken of and understood and known, but then they sort of discovered the planet only in the 1900s. So this is new energy for us to understand. What we do see with the symbolism is Pluto deals with death and rebirth type of
Yeah.
experiences, right? And Aquarius, which is where it's transiting through that sign until 2044, is the sign of humanity, the people. Aquarius is the water bearer, and it sort of confuses people because you think Aquarius is an air sign. Why is the symbol someone pouring water, right? What is that? Well, the water bearer is the awakening of consciousness to a higher level, right? Beyond the human level into the cosmic high self God level of consciousness. And then that wisdom of that awareness coming down onto the earth for everyone to experience, right? So when he's pouring the urn of water, he's pouring the wisdom of the stars onto the earth. So it's about the awakening of consciousness. The last time that we collectively went through the age of Aquarius and the age of Capricorn was known as the age of awakening, right? So the golden ages of
Mm.
consciousness were Aquarius and Capricorn. They were also known as the age without end. We retrograde through the ages backwards. So we go out of the age of Pisces and we're on the cusp of the age of Aquarius, right? Collectively. So that means that the last time we were in this position, 25,000 years ago, when we went out of the golden ages, we went into the age of Sagittarius, right? The previous sign to Capricorn. And that was the lake of fire of desire. And that's where consciousness fell into desire, right? And that was the humanity's fall from source connection. Because in the age of
Yeah.
Aquarius, we're awakened. We know. We don't believe in God. We know. We know how consciousness works. We know who we are. We know we're a soul. We know we don't have the need for religion or our belief or some Jesus coming back to save us. No, that's a consciousness that we can access collectively. And this takes us out of the age of belief where we have to believe, like, oh, I believe in the government and I believe in God and I believe into the age of knowing. gnosis, to know, like this is the energy that we're shifting into, right? On a big level, they know this. That's why they want to reset us, because they want to be able to control consciousness. That's what the reset's about, to control our consciousness so they can continue to benefit from the level of control that they have, right? That's what it's about. So I feel like they're going to try to do that, but the outcome is going to be a lot different this time. And is there going to be a lot of casualties along the way? Yes. Look at COVID. There's going to be always casualties, but ultimately the people will awaken, right? And will move consciously into that age. Is AI and technology going to be a part of that? That's an interesting story playing out
Mm,
simultaneously to this process. So we can look to some other alignments, but that's just looking at one planet, Pluto. Now, it's been in Aquarius on and off from 2023 to 2024.
okay.
At the end of 2024, it moved permanently into Aquarius, which will be until 2044.
Interesting.
So when the nodes, which are associated to the north and south node of the moon, which trigger our eclipses every year,
Yep.
when they move retrograding back into Aquarius Leo, which is next year and the next 2.5 years beyond that, that's going to be an interesting period in this Pluto transit because it punctuates that Pluto energy. So we've been feeling this energy coming. We've been feeling it on an unconscious level, and you're looking and going, what the hell? There's change. You can feel it, you can sense it, like it's changed, but what is going on?
Yeah.
We're going to really start to, have real life experience of this type of upheaval, crisis, death, rebirth process starting from next year forward. And in particular around February forward, because there's eclipses happening in February, which are in Aquarius, even though the nodes aren't, and they trigger the potential that's there, right? That potential, when you have an eclipse, it's like a release point for it. It's like a knot that gets untied, and all of a sudden, whatever's been building up can now manifest. That's why usually around eclipse times we have significant changes going on. Look at the last eclipse series, Charlie
Mm,
Kirk publicly assassinated, and the shift that occurs, the shift that drove people back to Jesus, and the rise,
yeah.
all that's timed around that particular energetic shift that happens around that eclipse. So we've got a really big one happening in Australia at the beginning of next year in February, and it's in Aquarius, which is where Pluto is too. So it's going to allow more of this plutonic energy to manifest for us. And if you want to get an understanding of how Pluto works, go back to 2020, right?
Yeah.
Worldwide health pandemic. Everyone's affected around the entire world, and it was a transformation through a crisis, the health crisis. Now, albeit that was hijacked and
Hmm.
a pandemic, right? Something that was pre-planned, orchestrated, and administered at that point on the masses. Why did it work so effectively? Because they knew what the cosmic time was. And the cosmic time was a Saturn Pluto conjunction in the sky that happens every 40 years. And I was like, phew. The one prior to that, that was around the time of the AIDS epidemic
That's right. Yep.
of the early 80s. That was a Saturn Pluto conjunction, before the one that we just had in 2020, which was the scamdemic, right? And it's another reason why we are saying earlier, like, do people in the know this stuff? Hell fucking yeah. Why are they doing it at that time? It's
Yeah.
coincidental? Nothing is coincidence. Everything's connected.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
So I'll continue if you want.
Go for it.
Yeah, so sorry. So there's another thing that's been happening this year that doesn't happen until next year, which is Saturn and Neptune are having a conjunction. And their conjunction happens every 38 years or so.
Okay.
So the last one was timed to 1989, 1990. 1989, 1990, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the coming down of the Berlin Wall.
Oh,
Now, does the cosmic alignment cause it? No, but it correlates to that, right? It's like that's happening for us here. It's not causing, it's not because of that's happening. It's just that's what time it is, right, for us collectively. So what is that? You have the collapsing of the old rigid structures of power and authority that are traditional or that have outlived consciousness, right? That idea of separating a country, West Germany, East Germany, communist versus like democratic, like that that idea was dying. And then you have
yeah.
this alignment and you have this dissolving of these old types of structures. Now, you can go back and you can look at the Saturn Neptune cycle, and it always tends to align to revolutions of types. Um, You got the Pluto in Aquarius, which is very revolutionary, awakening of the masses, right? Then you have a Saturn Neptune conjunction. However, it's happening at the 0 degrees of Aries, which is the very beginning of the whole zodiac, right? It's called the world degree, right? So 0 degrees Aries gives this particular potency. What are the symbolism of Aries, which is about your will and the power of your will when expressed through action into this world? In actual, think about Aries is fucking do something. What are you
Mm.
going to do about it? Aries are the first to go, let me, I'll do it. They're stereotypically great at starting things, but not good at finishing them.
Mm.
Because they initiate, right? That's the fire, the spark, it's the action, it's the just the impulse or the urge to act, right? Aries people can be quite forceful and dominant, and they can be a little bit in your face sometimes, and a little bit. And imbalanced Aries energy tends to be a little bit self-centered, ignorant, or even self-aggrandizing. Like they are inconsiderate of others, not in a negative way, but sometimes they just that doesn't consider in their consciousness, if you like that, because it's all about the self, right? So you put Saturn in that sign, which is authority, government, rules, right? It's also the sort of factor that binds society and keeps them cohesive is a Saturn energy. What expands the societies and cultures and allows for expansion is the Jupiter. And then you have the Saturn, which is more of a concretizing energy, which creates boundaries and limitations to said society. So you put Saturn in Aries, so you've got this sort of authority in this acting through like initiation and action and doing things and taking control. And then you throw Neptune, right, which is a planet of disillusionment, dissolving of boundaries. So Saturn, Neptune don't tend to really work harmoniously together because they're two polarizing qualities. One is concretizing an authority and strict and boundary setting, and the other is dissolving, transcending, more of elusive and not necessarily trying to pin something to something, more of it saying, well, it's fluid. So the two, when they come together, you tend to have a dissolving effect on the said authority, structures, rules, boundaries, and things. But that's going to happen in Aries, and Aries is all about the expression of your will force. So this is the rise of the spiritual warrior. So the initiation that we've been collective going through as an individual and the collective over the last 5 years since COVID was to initiate people into an awakening of what?
Mm.
Well, it's not awakening that government's corrupt and the system's fucked and the economics all Ponzi. That's part of it. But the awakening is that you're a soul,
Yeah.
that you exist beyond this physical form, and you will, and you're ever here, and you're never going to disappear. You're always here, and even if you don't have a body, you still don't go anywhere. You're eternal. Right?
Okay.
That's the real awakening. Yeah. So now we take that awakening, and for those that have gone through that awakening initiation, this is the time of the rising of their spiritual, right, which is the Neptunian factor, warrior, which is Aries. But what you're also going to have, because astrology isn't one thing, it's symbolic, so it's many things, you're going to have this dissolving effect on said authority. And those that are trying to really overstep the boundaries and to go too far, it's not looking good for 2026 and beyond. If they try to push too far, there's going to be this sort of weakening effect of their rules and their structure and their boundaries and things like that. So that's a big thing when it ties into this digital identity and the way they want to go with that sort of thing. But I think if they're going to go too far and it's going to act in their not in their favor. Um, on another side of this, you have a subset of people within reality, right, consciousness, that are going to suffer from a loss of will or life force, right? Because it's confusing, it's overwhelming, it's too hard, I can't do it, I don't know, and succumb to a loss of their will. They're going to be more likely to be influenced by external authority, rules, things like that. And they might even, you might even have around the Saturn Neptune conjunction, and around that time period, you might have a pretty significant increase in the death toll because you have a weakening of people's will and their life force depletes, and all of a sudden their soul just says, well, this is my out, right?
Yeah.
Saturn, you deal with death, and with Neptune, you deal with things that affect masses of people, right? So mass media through movies is Neptune. So when we want to connect to like a huge group of people, it's very Neptunian. And Saturn is planet that rules death, the end. It's the Grim Reaper, right? When your time is up, he's the god that rules time. Kronos says, hey, time on Earth, like the physical realm, there's a beginning and an end, and he rules the end. So tie that into what was going on through COVID and people's choices and actions. Saturn and Neptune, you have a karmic retribution for actions, right? It's like what was going on where you're at, and here is now the consequences of the actions that led you to this moment. And they're playing out in a time where it could mean that people are going to succumb to a loss of will force. You might have as well timed around this particular time period, early February next year. You might have sort of natural disasters that are occurring that impact lots of people.
Okay.
Um, Interestingly, when doing a lot of research on the Australia chart, which is what I'm doing a series on at the moment in YouTube, is whenever there's been a couple of big, large events occur through Australia, so Black Saturday, Martin Bryant assassination, when you have like mass casualty events,
Hmm.
they've been within a week or two of eclipses, right?
Interesting.
Eclipses play out, and then you have this happening. So we've got some pretty significant eclipses in February, and they do activate the Australia birth chart. And then you've got that happening on the same day as the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is a beginning of a whole new cycle as well. So that's energetically what's in the short term, and that starts this next phase. And then we pull in more planetary energies that are occurring next year, and you pull in Uranus moving through Gemini, and you have sudden disruptions and changes to travel, communications, and media, so information. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to censor, they're trying to ban the children, they're going to do all these types of things to block what you can say and have your free expression of speech. And then there's more.
Yep.
You have a Jupiter cycle next year, which is moving into Leo. And Jupiter in Leo is a very potent, powerful energy. And you can have Pluto in Aquarius, the sign opposite, and Jupiter in Leo. If you reverse that, right, the last time Pluto was in Leo, Jupiter was in Aquarius. This is the time of the Second World War and the use of the atomic bomb. So we've
Interesting.
got a reversal of that energy happening for us next year. I
Mm.
personally think that for Australia, that's going to tie in with the death of King Charles. I think that he's going to pass next year, and that's going to really impact on the identity of Australia as we go through this. What we want to be part of this Commonwealth or monarchy, and what does that look like? And that's going to be up for debate again and coming back into the consciousness of the people. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if Republic is the answer or what, but I know that the system that we're under, the Commonwealth, if you look at UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, we're all signed up to this global agenda of
Hmm.
resetting WEF and things like that. And I think that's the takeover of the monarchy or the Commonwealth by the corporatization, totalitarian type state. So that's going to be an interesting time period. William will probably ascend to the throne, but he's the last king. So
Yes.
after William, there's no more. He's born on an eclipse, and the eclipse series that he's born under is specifically relates to the ending of monarchies.
Interesting.
Born right precisely on an eclipse. So yeah, interesting times ahead for sure.
Mm.
What does that mean for the average person?
Yep.
Well,
Good question. I was going to ask you
you've
that.
got to become the observer. You've got to become less attached to the story, less attached to the reality, and less attached to dependency upon it. Right?
Love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is because it's like stand back and let it die. Let it go. Let it all crumble. Let it fall down. Let it do its thing. Don't
Mm.
resist that. Don't get swept up in it either by clinging too tightly to it, to an idea,
Yeah.
to a story, to a narrative, to this particular person or that particular person. Pull right back. This is a time for detachment. Aquarius, which is where Pluto is moving through, Aquarius is all about detachment because it's through detachment that you can gain a clarity, you can gain awareness, you can gain objectivity. When you're attached and you're in it and you're personally connected to it, you lose that because you're now focused on the thing, the problem, the issue, and it's me and it's mine and it's I and it's us because I'm part of this, whatever it is. It's like pull all that
Yeah.
back, pull that right back and
Mm.
watch and observe. That doesn't mean you don't participate and you take action in your own life. And if you want to invest in golds and stocks or real estate and crypto and things like that, like do whatever is right for you. But when it comes to the system and the story and what's happening, and also to there's another part of this which is when Saturn and Neptune coming together, what's real and what isn't real is going to be big blurring of lines around that. Like, what the fuck is this real or isn't this real? And that's already happening with AI. There's so much deep fake going on. Even look at the Charlie Kirk assassination. I won't get too political or conspiratorial in that, but there's so many questions around that. Where you go, what did that really happen? Is he really dead? Like, certainly the narrative they told you is not in alignment to what it looked like occurred.
Mhm.
So you can go crazy trying to work out the truth. So don't try. Just know that if it's been presented to you on a screen and you haven't experienced in your actual reality, and even then when you have, question that also.
Mm.
You see things occurring in the sky and like just question those things. Don't cling too tightly and be mindful of reactivity, right? Oh, that happened. Now I'm going to do this. There's very good reason if there's a major event happening that's affecting a large group of people, there's very good um, case study to suggest that that's manipulation and designed a certain way to elicit a certain response. So don't fall into it, And again, the Charlie Kirk thing was a classic of that. How people and not only that, that when they came out in the US recently, they told everyone about Tylenol in pregnancy
Yep.
causes. So then you had all the people on the left going, "Oh, I'm going to eat Tylenol," and they had fucking ODs on
Mm.
Tylenol when they were pregnant. One woman lost her life and her baby by doing that. Because why? Because she was triggered and responded from that trigger, and then all of a sudden she's done something that happened on the TV that didn't affect her personal life whatsoever, right? If you think about it, had no bearing on her personal life, but yet she made actions and choices in her personal life which ended her life. Like that's some crazy, crazy shit. So is it going to get better out there? It's not going to get better. It's just going to get more fucked up and crazy and weird and just what the hell. So the more like you are detached from it and the less fucking dependent on it and the more you can just navigate that with free will and like my go-to is that's interesting.
Mm.
When something happens, that's interesting. That's interesting. Let me just you know marinate on that idea. Rather than like, oh my God. It's like, that's interesting. It's easier said than done because when you are certainly emotionally invested in something and that's the thing that gets triggered, it's they're tapping in, playing into your emotions. So it's an exercise. A disciplined will is going to be really important as we move through next year. To be disciplined in the will and the exercising of your will and what you're putting your will, which is your energy, your action towards um, and really to only things that matter most to you and your loved ones rather than just what the hell's going on out there. Um,
I love that because whatever will be, right?
in when it comes to that,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And I feel that too, like putting your energy into, building your own life and building your own dreams and, what do you value and all the things that, I did way, way, way back. But you also just go, well, what's important to me? Does that system or that world at a point, yes, it does affect you, but it's like how much do you let that affect you though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and what were you saying? Just saying that I was going to pick up on um, the what you value and what you don't value.
Yeah.
This is a good time in the break between now and the end of this year. This is a good time for reevaluating things and to play out some worst case scenarios. Worst case
Okay.
scenarios are like, let's say, fuck, there's all of a sudden there's a economic reset or a depression. Let's say there's a natural disaster. Let's say there's issues with the internet or the access to information.
Digital
Let's
ID.
say well, let's say let it play out those scenarios and say, okay, in the event of something like that happening, am I prepared and how I respond? Rather than just
Yeah.
avoid it and stick your head in the hand and hope and pray, be proactive in reassessing those things. Just saying, okay, what would I do and how would I be? Would I be okay? And that causes this process of reevaluation because this is anyone out there on their awakening journey. What you valued prior to your awakening and what you put your energy and resources towards because of that is going to be fundamentally completely different on the other side of that awakening journey. And it's a good time every now and then to consciously stop and go, we just got to reevaluate what's most important to us. Um, and then you have a focal point for yourself in your own personal life as we go through what is going to be a time where there's the potential for fucking amazing experiences for people over this next period of time and the shift of consciousness that's occurring. When consciousness shifts collectively like that, it's usually through events that it does so. It's never really like one day we just wake up because we just all decided to wake up and we start looking at the stars and think, oh my God, we're one with the universe. That doesn't really happen. It's usually there's a catalyst that causes that type of response, right? So therefore, knowing cosmically we've got these massive energetic shifts and changes, the likes that we haven't experienced as a humanity, all happening simultaneously, you could say that there's probably going to be some events associated to these shifting of consciousness. So it's not so much the event, it's the impact or outcome of said events and how that changes people. An example is the COVID era. Look
Mhm.
at what they did and what they pumped through the system, and the response was what? Fear.
Yep.
What did people do when their root chakra was compromised, right? They died.
Yeah.
They went and bought toilet paper
Yeah.
en masse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there was a shift in consciousness because of something that occurred on a screen that impacted the collective consciousness in that way. Now, it just so happened that you had Saturn, Pluto. Pluto deals with, the root of things, the hidden nature of things, and the expulsion of dirty things. That's all Plutonic. And then you have this Saturn, which is fear. So that happens energetically, cosmically. They pull off the scandemic, which triggers this deep-rooted primal fear of survival, and people rush to the store to buy toilet paper because the part of our body that relates to that energy is our root chakra.
Makes sense.
I'm not safe, I'm not grounded, I'm not secure. My root chakra is not balanced. So toilet paper was a thing. I use that as an example to suggest that there's probably going to be events associated to this shift we're going to go through, and therefore it's not so much the event, it's what the response to the event is on consciousness. And for some people really stuck in the programming and their conditioning and their attachment, COVID was hell. Like it was
Yeah.
little. For
Mm.
me, it was probably one of the biggest growth years I've ever had as an astrologer.
Can
Like a
confirm.
exponential amount of clients, and I went global from a little place in Melbourne where I was living at the time,
That's
went
right.
then went had international clients all of a
Mm.
sudden within a few months, right? So how can you go through that and say it was a good time? Oh, I wasn't affected by any of it. As in, I was affected. I was locked down, and I was told to do all these things that I resisted and didn't do. I didn't choose that reality to define my reality.
Exactly.
And that's a big part of, moving next year is don't allow what the story they're telling you to define your reality and how you live your life and respond to it. Um, yeah. Anyway, I don't know how you
Yeah.
go.
No, I view that whole period exactly the same way. Like my whole life changed, and I know this platform was birthed in that period. You know, the things I've done has completely transformed, and yeah, I talk out there to people now, and people do say, "Oh yeah, it was hell." It's like it was heaven on earth for me. Like I went through all these shifts. I was in a Saturn return as well, which I only found out about a few months ago, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, all these things are happening in my life, and
Mm,
look what's been birthed from it. I'm grateful for that time. Like if it
yeah.
wasn't for that time, I'd still be doing the things I was doing way, way, way back. It's like
Yeah.
got immense gratitude for those 5 years, Luke.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm grateful for the collective because although yeah, it was a hardship for a lot of people and it was challenging and there was a lot of casualties to it in many ways, mentally and physically, and even people lost their lives, right?
Hmm.
Not so much from the actual thing, but from the thing. Um,
Yeah.
but so
Yeah.
like sometimes look at it like this: people don't change unless they're put in positions of discomfort.
That's
Right?
true.
We're in a place of comfort. Like humanity is going to go through massive changes over the next 2 to 5 years. They're going to be huge. We're building towards this shift. Okay, so prepare for that type of change and know that usually it comes because you're put in a place of discomfort. Is if you're not in that place of discomfort, nothing changes, nothing changes. Oh, I'll just go along, go the mode. So prepare for a level of discomfort, but actually, um, welcome that as an ability to evolve and change,
Yeah.
because there's a lot at stake for the collective at this juncture. And just because certain astrological alignments are occurring doesn't mean it's going to play out a certain way. They want to hijack the script and have it play out their way. They
Well,
want to
mate.
control the story, right? Well, if we understand the script, we can say, well, let's play it up this way.
Yeah,
Let's
our way.
respond exactly, And the biggest sort of misconception is that we are powerless, that we can't evoke change in place.
Yes.
That's what keeps people small and doesn't allow them to speak up or stand up or do and say things, right? I feel like you'll see a big shift in that, and you'll have more and more people actually standing their ground and speaking up and stand and saying no. Um, so, don't think that your little thing you're going to do or is thing you're going to post or story you're going to tell is going to have like, oh, it's not going to matter. Everything matters.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, as you change, the world changes around you.
Mm.
Yeah. Go watch a good thing, and I tell people this quite often, especially at the precipice of significant change. I think I was telling people in 2019 how to prepare for 2020 was go watch the Star Wars movies and recognize which side do I want to be on. If
Yeah.
you're on Darth Vader's side, then you really want to be in the system and you want to be like, touting for totalitarianism and over the side and control, right? So if you're not on that side, then you are a Jedi or a Jedi in the making. So it's awakening the Force now. You know,
Mm.
what are you gonna do with that? And sometimes you don't have to do anything. It's an awareness, right?
Mm.
Yeah. It was like with the whole COVID thing again. I'm not going to do that. And I'm prepared for whatever consequences come because of what they say. Like, oh, you're not allowed to do that and you can't go here. And this, I was prepared for them to knock on my door, take me to the firing squad and shoot me because I wouldn't obey. I'm like, if that's my path, then I'm prepared for that.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to do whatever else there is. That's resistance. So, and it doesn't take action. It took the ability just to stand my ground, say no. And I navigated that time period successfully, even though like, oh my God, for a lot they were going through hell. For me, it was like, so what?
Yeah.
I remember getting on planes and going back and forth from Melbourne to Gold Coast and Sydney and things and not wearing a mask, and people on the plane that I was on getting kicked off for not wearing a mask. It was just like an awareness that I had and an energy that I held, and it was like I was invisible, didn't
Yeah.
exist. I was not allowing that reality. I could have gone there and went, "Oh, I'm not wearing a fucking mask." That's what happened, right? Guy got lippy with him, and we're like, "I don't have to," and they went, "Oh, okay, motherfucker, get off."
Yep.
So, um, yeah, reevaluating, going through a few potential worst case scenarios, being prepared, being open, being the observer. That's going to be good. And one last thing,
Yep.
'cause I know we're at an hour mark now, so we've probably got a little bit left. It's highly probable that there's going to be global conflict from 2026 forward.
Yep.
Uh, for many reasons. And it's not because of the astrology, but when something like this comes into my awareness, this idea, I always want to look to the astrology and say, well, could that happen astrologically? Like, is it possible? Is there a potential there? And it is there.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a guy online, I think his name is Martin Lawrence. Don't quote me. He has a software, he's created software which is predictive software. He uses it to track the internet and financial markets and political sort of things. It's called Socrates, his software, and you subscribe to it, and every year he does a report for it and he gives you the analysis and tracks things. And he's been pretty on point with his trends that he tracks. And for quite some years, I don't subscribe to it, but I follow people that subscribe to it and they
Gotcha.
report. And for quite a few years, he's been saying that we're moving towards the war, conflict, right? And that it ties into around this time period, 2026 through 2028 time period. So that's a potential. Now, if you have mass uprising, if you have mass awakening, and you're in the position of control and authority within society, it's a good point that your authority is going to be challenged and the control is going to be challenged as well.
Mm.
So how do you subvert that? Well, go to war, right? Go to war. So it wouldn't surprise me if that is one of the mechanisms of the powers that be, let's say, to create conflict. And there already are, three spots. There's the Russia, Ukraine, there's the Middle East,
Yeah.
China situation with the US. So they're all potential areas. And I know they're talking a lot about peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, they are.
I don't buy into that at all. I think it's
Mm.
false
I
peace at this
agree.
moment.
Yep.
It's too idealistic. And realistically, fundamentally, they haven't resolved any of the challenges that they have. They've just said, "Oh, we're going to go to peace." It's like I think it's going to be a bit of a false sense of security, and I think you'll find things escalating, especially next year. So, what does that mean for the average person? I don't think we need to be afraid or anything like that. Again, it's about whether you choose to participate in something like that, whether you're allowing to define your reality or whether you're just becoming objective to it.
Mm.
Um, and but again, it's like the COVID, don't get caught up in that. You don't have to buy into it. But it wouldn't surprise me if, there's especially about July of next year, that time period, where you see some pretty significant upticks in hotspots. Um, so there's no de-escalating at the moment of the Ukraine-Russia, which is basically NATO Russia.
Mm.
Ukraine is just the proxy, right? It's
Yep.
basically NATO against Russia. And there's a lot of things happening there that aren't getting much publicity that you go, this is close to like going out to next level war, which would certainly impact on Europe for sure. And then the Middle East situation, I think that's more biblical, and that's part of a prophecy that I think that they're actually madmen are trying to enact here physically. So that's going to be an interesting place to watch.
Mm.
If there is any bombing of mosques or the Temple Dome or anything like that, like that's a key point along your timeline to go, okay, right, the shit's real now. If that occurs, just go, shit's real.
Shit's already
Um,
real.
shit's real, but that's a real like that's
Yeah.
a indicator to go, okay, yeah, we're in the shit. Plus you've got a lot of instability within certain countries and nations and the immigration stuff and all of that going on. You got the left-right debate over in the US, and that doesn't seem to be, de-escalating. And then, immigration and crime and all those types of things, especially in a lot of these Western cultures, I think it's all by design. Create division and instability, and that what does that do? It dilutes people power. They're coming together of people as a collective, regardless of your religion or your race or your color, your skin or your gender or anything like that. That's what they fear the most. So all these things are there and all of the potential's there, and it's all happening at the same time as we could potentially be at some type of global conflict. So, you know, again, it's what do you do with that? It's awareness, observer, don't buy into that. And don't be triggered to respond and be like waving your fist in the street. It's like that's not your battle. Yeah.
Ah, I love that. Nah, what? So, to summarize all that up, Luke, for next year and bit of this year, like just to summarize all that, what would be your advice? Like you might have said it, but just to summarize it now.
We are going through an unprecedented time in relation to the cosmic sort of clock, and as far as the impact that that's going to have on the consciousness of collective.
Mm.
And it's not one thing, it's multiple things, and they're all sort of combining together to happen simultaneously. And when you have the outer planets, which is Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter, um, involved in this alignments, these are big irrevocable change moments, change that are going to affect a large number of people, if not the entire world. And we're being building through this sort of energy towards a sort of a peak of it beginning and then lasting for some period of time, but beginning next year. So there is so much potential through this for awareness and awakening, and then the action that needs to be in alignment to that shift of your awareness, right? You're awoken. What am I going to do differently in my life? How am I going to show up differently? Um, so I see it as a fantastic time for humanity, but that could also mean that the world that we once knew and the attachment to it and the dependency upon it is going to be tested and shaken. And if you're not prepared, that could be diabolical. That could be like, oh my God, and you could lose faith, hope, stability, all those different things. So if you're aware, you can be like, cool, this is part of this process, which irrespective of whether you're consciously aware of it or not, your soul wanted you to be here for this.
That's
Like you
true.
you came here at this time to go through whatever experiences we're going through. And not because you're going to just go, oh, hey, that's awesome, because your conscious will is needed, right? So your awareness. And maybe part of this journey for you is to be the witness, like to bear witness to this. I remember I do past life regression therapy. So I've been through a lot of past life regressions with other people as well. They've taken me through them. And I was taken some time ago to a lifetime, 100 lifetimes of mine ago. So 100 different lifetimes ago. And I was standing on a landscape, a panoramic landscape on a mountain, looking out, watching the flood, watching,
Interesting.
Atlantis going under and the flood that inundated, wiped out pretty much humanity at that level in my life at the time. And the reason that I was at that life and bearing witness to that cataclysm was because I was given the knowledge of what happens to the people, the humans, not the earth, the people, right? When they lose connection, when they lose awareness, when they get lost in the technology or the advancement or the self-aggrandizing and fulfilling. And that's the impact that it has. So why was I taken back to that experience and that life and given that information and knowledge? And why am I living through this particular time? Is because I'm here to bear witness again to the
Yep.
same thing. And people don't realize that, people don't realize what's at stake here when it comes to the individual and the collective. And the war that's always been going on with the war on your soul. Okay. So that is where we are, I feel, as a humanity, and we're waking up into that awareness. Okay, so if we do, what are we going to do about that now? How do we change? How do we change? The world, right, changes when we do.
That's it.
Now, because we have been conditioned to wait for the world to change, they know what they do is they just do events that change the world, and we go along, oh, okay.
Yep. Yep.
So if we want to awaken into knowledge and to remember why we're here and that our soul is important, and that's the most important thing because that's really who you are. You're not this body. That's just a vehicle for your soul to be here, right? So with that, that's the very thing that they fear the most. They don't want people coming into that awareness because their whole illusion and game and everything crumbles in an instant. So that's the true awakening through this process. And once you come into that awareness, then how you be matters. How you act, how you respond, how you show up in this life, that matters. And it matters on the individual personal level as it does in the collective. And you have way more power to enact change than you have been conditioned to think. And do not allow fear to restrict you in any way. That's the only mechanism that this system has to control the masses is to keep them afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of death? Guess what? You're going to die. You've died thousands of times already. It's not about death. It's about life, right? And that's what we're standing here for now as a collective. We're standing for fucking life. So it's big.
Look, it is big, and what a mic drop to finish the episode, mate. I couldn't have put that any better myself. It's so true. I love
Yeah,
it. I love it. I love it when you come on and just drop magic, mate. And just, I love it. I just, yeah, you're an awesome man. You're an awesome person, and I'm so grateful that 3 years ago my friend found you real talking to a tree, and I just reached out to you.
I remember that. I
Yeah,
was I was coming off some ayahuasca,
yeah.
and the trees were talking to me, and they were fucking pissed.
Yes.
And I
How
was
are
like,
they now? I reckon they're still a little bit pissed.
haven't had a conversation with them for some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say they're probably just as fucking pissed. They'll be
Yeah. It's
fine. Nature and the world will be fine.
agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, there will be some impact to it, and we've got to be careful and good custodians of this place, but they'll endure because they know how to live and exist and connect. We lose that.
Yeah.
We don't know how to connect. We don't even know how to talk to the person down the street anymore.
It's so true.
So we lose that connection. Why? Because we're so disconnected into this whatever this is.
Yeah.
So I feel like the more that can crumble and break down and the illusion can be broken, the better it is. And is it going to be like, yay, we're awaking? No, it's like, fucking hell, I'm awakened. I'm awakening into this hell. What are we doing here? We didn't come here to live this way and be this way. And this isn't how we're supposed to be.
Nah.
And we're all, myself included, we're all living with that fear and like, oh, you can't do that. You shouldn't do all about this. What about that? It's like, fuck, really? That's how we're supposed to experience this reality? I say, fuck that.
Mm,
That. Too long
mm.
now. Too many lifetimes. It's been that way.
Agreed.
So
You
hopefully
were
that
talking about past life
light
regression and stuff. Like
yeah.
that's a whole nother podcast, but I've delved into mine too and had those similar profound experiences you're talking about. Not with the Aquarius, but I went back to this is a whole nother conversation, but I went back to Egypt in mine and witnessed something
Mhm.
quite similar. Not a flood, but I was just like, oh, I've had that those past life regression moments come to me too, bro. And yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just like sitting here going, fuck, I have a lot to tell you about that.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
our past selves would be looking at us now, going, "What the fuck are you doing?"
yeah,
Like we've been through and endured and overcome way worse than this shit. But
100%.
yet this is like look at especially when it comes to the political landscape at the moment and how pathetic and weak the leaders are
Yeah,
and
look at
their
Albo.
statement and all that. And they're so disconnected.
Yeah.
It's like why are we allowing that? Why are
Even
we
Trump too.
yeah. I mean the whole system. It's
Yeah,
corrupt at the core. I mean, it doesn't the system by its very nature is not living, it's dead. It's a dead system. It's a corporatized entity.
correct.
And we're allowing this dead entity to dictate life for us.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fucked up.
yep, it is.
It
Luke,
is.
I just appreciate and so grateful for you and everything you've shared today. And my audience will gain a lot from this as they all always do. And I did say last year, let's not wait 12 months, and here we are at 12 months. So let's not wait 12 months. So I'll check back in with you in a few months instead.
A good time for a follow-up is March next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so pencil something in for around mid-March. And
I'm
we'll
gonna just
have a lot to talk about, I reckon.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note of that. I don't have any pen and paper around at the moment. I'm just gonna just write this in the chat of Zoom.
Yeah.
March 2026, middle.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just gonna make a note of that.
We'll probably catch up before then anyway. Hopefully, over the Christmas break I might be up on the Sunshine
Yeah,
Coast.
let me know, mate. I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you again, mate. It's yeah, if we meet you in person, that'd be awesome. And
Yeah.
we're still live and recording, but I do want to get more of insight into my charts and stuff too. So I'm gonna have to send you an email and book in a session with you too.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I'll look after
Yep.
you. Yeah, that's my jam. That's what I do. That's where I am at my best when I'm helping people.
Mm.
And I just have an ability to be able to look at someone and their life through the lens of their chart in a way that is helpful. So
Yeah. So I had an astrologer on that's down your way probably a couple months ago, and she was just did like a mock one for the
okay.
pod. Yeah, and she just sort of just showed her stuff. And yeah, my Saturn return was 2021 September when I quit drinking. I fell through that table. That was like the start of my Saturn return.
It's usually we have a lesson that causes us to mature.
That was mine. Yeah.
Yeah, he teaches through hardship, challenge, restriction, obstacles, and it's a time your Saturn return of maturing, right?
I just
Taking
said
responsibility for your life.
100%. And I said in that chat too, I said, it would have been nice to know that information 4 years ago prior to. So then I was like, my brother's turning 20, he's 27 now. So I said, oh, you're probably about to go through yours and he's got that information. It's like, oh, I wish I had that information. I went through mine because my whole life was just turned upside down in that time.
Yeah, I mean, retrospectively is a good thing to do with astrology is to go back at key moments in your life and then look at your chart and what was happening astrologically. And usually you'll see big key cycles or themes
Interesting.
activating in the chart at the time. And it helps you then form a personal relationship to the energetics of what the planetary energies are doing. So that was for me. I didn't wake up until 34 or 5, and then by then I'm married with kids, and
Yeah.
so I looked back once I got awareness around astrology, retrospective, all these different key moments in my life and what was happening, and it made so much sense. It's like, oh, that gives me so much clarity.
Mm.
And you could regret or wish that you knew or didn't know. It's like, life just happens that
That's
way.
true.
So, and
Yeah.
sometimes, with Saturn too, usually we have to make a mistake a few times before we learn the lesson. And that's what Saturn teaches is you learn it, you had to learn it the hard way. And that's why when you overcome whatever that is, you're the master.
I think I definitely
Like,
learned it the hard way.
I'm not doing that again. Yeah.
Luke, thank you so much, mate, for jumping on my
My pleasure.
platform,
Thanks for having me,
replying my
mate.
email straight away. Like you're just always willing to jump on, and you've been on 3 times, and as long as this platform goes, I'll continue to get you back on, mate, because I just love chatting with you. I really do. You're just an
Awesome.
awesome Aussie bloke. So
No
thank you so
worries.
much for your insights, mate. And
Good on you.
Breaking Free podcast is over and out. We'll chat again soon, guys. Cheers.